Welcome to this training video. It explains a conceptual framework for statistics about work. We're going to look at the new international standards and how they have changed the way countries measure work and employment in their official statistics.
The concept of work is closely linked to the notion of production. From an economic perspective, everything we do throughout the 24 hours of a day can be classified as either a productive or a non-productive activity. If you think about a typical day in someone's life, there are many different things that they do. They sleep, bathe, dress, prepare meals, eat, and clean up. They may take care of children or do some form of paid work. They may travel to and from the market or their workplace. They may relax by talking with friends or watching television.
Productive activities are those that result in producing a good or providing a service that can be either used by the individual themselves or be done for someone else. Making repairs to your own house, for example, is a productive activity. Caring for family members and doing housework are productive activities. Engaging in paid or unpaid work for others is also a productive activity.
Non-productive activities, on the other hand, are all those that don't result in a good or service being produced. This includes activities that cannot be performed by others on your behalf, such as sleeping, eating, learning, or relaxing. Also, activities like begging and stealing are considered to be non-productive, even though they may be a source of livelihood for some people, because they do not involve producing a good or providing a service.
The types of productive activities that people do is reflected in official labour statistics produced by the National Statistical System in each country. Knowing the types of productive activities people engage in is essential for governments to design their economic, social and environmental policies. Labour statistics are also extremely useful for others, such as researchers, business owners, service providers and the media. They can use this information to understand the supply and demand for labour, make decisions, inform the public and hold government accountable for implementing good public policy.
Also, as you might imagine from the name, measurement of productive activities is critical for people interested in measuring productivity within an economy. For that purpose, it's essential that we measure all of the activities which provide input to the production process, regardless of whether they are paid or not.
How countries measure productive activities is based on international frameworks and standards. Such standards promote best practice and ensure labour statistics can be compared within and between countries.
Prior to 2013, the standard definition of employment included many types of productive activities, but not all. And there was no agreed definition for work. People who work for pay or run a business to make a profit, volunteers working without pay in organisations, persons who produce goods for themselves, such as building their own home or fetching water, were all considered to be employed. By contrast, people providing services for their own households, for example cooking meals or caring for family members, and those who work as volunteers for other households, were not recognised at all. This was because, in the past, emphasis was placed on producing labour statistics for monitoring the economy, and only employment activities were considered as contributing to economic growth.
In practice, some countries only ever considered paid work as employment, while others included some types of unpaid work, like growing food for the family, but excluded others, like collecting firewood and fetching water. What we had in the end was a great deal of inconsistency in how countries measured employment, and it was not always clear which types of work have been included and which had not.
The International Labour Organization, the ILO, is the organisation with responsibility for labour statistics. It coordinates the setting of international standards through a mechanism called the International Conference of Labour Statisticians, the ICLS.
The ICLS was first established in 1923 and brings together government officials, employer and worker representatives to meet every 5 years. The ICLS promotes coherence in the concepts and methods used in labour statistics across data sources and between topics. It aims to promote the development of official labour statistics at the national level and foster international data comparability.
The Department of Statistics within the ILO hosts the ICLS meetings and acts as its secretariat. Together with other United Nations agencies, the ILO forms part of the global statistical system.
In October 2013, the ICLS adopted a new resolution on statistics concerning work, employment and labour underutilisation. This resolution updates previous standards and provides a new conceptual framework for labour force and work statistics.
The new standard sees different forms of work measured separately, making the statistics much clearer. It also introduces the first internationally agreed definition of work as any activity performed to produce goods or provide services for use by others or for own use. In other words, work is the same thing as productive activities. The resolution defines 5 different forms of work.
Own use production work. That's the work we do for our own households or family, such as growing food, cleaning or fixing the house, or caring for family members.
Employment work. That's work done in exchange for pay or profit, such as running your own business, working in a family business, or being an employee of an organisation.
Unpaid trainee work is the work done for others without pay in exchange for the opportunity to gain workplace skills or experience.
Volunteer work is work that people do willingly and without pay for others outside their household or family. This includes volunteer work done through organisations such as a charity, or directly, for example, to help a neighbour.
And finally, other work is a category for any work that doesn't fit into the 4 categories. An example being unpaid compulsory work done by prisoners or community service work ordered by a court authority.
While this might sound straightforward, the new framework is quite a change because for the first time it recognises all unpaid productive activities as contributing to the economy and to the livelihood of households, especially services provided without pay by household members and by volunteers. This is central to achieving gender equality as it recognises the productive activities of women and men equally.
The framework is also really useful for the production of statistics because it provides countries with a basis to separately measure and produce information about the different productive activities that people do. This will better meet the needs for designing evidence-based economic and social policies. It will provide us with a more complete picture of how many and who has access to employment, how many are growing food for their own households or caring for their families and who they are, or how many and who are contributing to society through volunteering.
This is especially important as people are often engaged in one or more forms of work. For example, someone may be a full-time homemaker who takes care of the house and family, but also helps their elderly neighbour with the shopping, and does the accounts for the family business in the evening. The fact they are engaged in all of these activities means they are doing employment work, own use production work, and doing volunteer work. Being able to quantify who does what and examine the relationships between the different forms of work that people do provides valuable information for planning and achieving sustainable development.
In addition to these definitions of work, the resolution also provides countries with guidance to develop their national systems of work and labour force statistics. This includes how to set up and manage data collection, which sources to use, and the population to cover. There are also suggestions on how to decide which indicators to produce and how frequently to collect and report the statistics.
So what does the new resolution mean for labour statistics? Well, improved data quality is the ultimate goal. Currently, national practices are inconsistent. The new framework makes a clearer distinction between different forms of work and, once implemented, will provide more useful statistics for policy and decision making that emphasise inclusive social and economic development. The new framework encourages data collection that covers the whole picture, so the world of work can be better understood.
By extending and clarifying the definition of work, the new framework encourages a more complete measurement of the different productive activities that people do, such as own use production.
The framework introduces some new indicators in this regard, including some related to subsistence foodstuff producers. This indicator captures persons involved in activities to produce food from agriculture, fishing, hunting or gathering that is mainly for consumption by their own households or families. Although no longer considered employment, as the products are not intended for the market, this form of work is essential to the livelihoods and food security of many households and families.
A major change due to the narrow definition of employment is the impact on some of the key labour market indicators. In theory, the new definitions will see fewer people counted as employed and more as unemployed or outside the labour force. This will lower the employment to population ratio and may change the labour force participation rate. In reality, how these indicators change will depend on the national definitions used prior to 2013 and how countries adopt the new definitions.
As with any change introduced to the production of statistics, countries need to establish a plan to develop and test new methods and to evaluate how best to introduce the changes in their national context. Changes in concepts and methods will need to be documented and explained to data users. This transition will take some time.
The ILO is collaborating with countries, international and regional organisations, employers and workers' representatives to promote implementation of the 19th ICLS resolution. This involves wide communication about the standards, their impact and interpretation. Tools like this training video, technical manuals and model data collection instruments are being prepared to assist countries to produce internationally comparable statistics based on good practice.
Once implemented, policy and decision makers can expect better quality information about the labour force and the world of work. National and international systems of labour statistics will be able to better respond to the increasing need for data and evidence. The information produced will be more relevant and useful for guiding economic, social and environmental development.
This video has given an overview of the conceptual framework that guides how countries produce their statistics about work. We have looked at the difference between productive and non-productive activities and introduced the new framework for defining and measuring work.
As explained in the video, these new standards will help countries to produce better quality statistics that provide a more complete picture of the world of work, giving policy and decision makers the information they need to achieve sustainable development goals.
The transition to the new standards requires planning, development and testing of methods and explaining the changes to users so they can understand how to interpret and compare the statistics over time. The ILO Statistics Department is there to support countries to make these changes with guidance, tools and technical assistance.
Another video in this series goes into more detail on the definitions, concepts and methods recommended for measuring employment, labour force status and labour underutilisation. To access this and related materials, please visit the website of the ILO Department of Statistics at www.ilo.org/stat.